I'm Jerry Agar in for Ezra Levant today. A group of 8 people are on trial right now in Caledonia, Ontario for trespassing on a public road. It's a topsy-turvy world in Caledonia, the land that good government forgot. One of those charged is Merlyn Kinrade, and he joins us from Caledonia. Sir, welcome.
Thanks very much. I'm glad to be here, Jerry.
I don't think you'd disagree with topsy-turvy world. You probably would call it something much, much worse. For those who are not familiar, some years ago, a group of native protesters took over development that was happening there, and the police ultimately and the government sided with the protesters and not the people who owned the development, not the citizens of the area such as yourself. And we have devolved into a situation where you were merely walking on a road owned by the province and you were arrested. Am I correct?
Well, you're correct to a point, Jerry. Actually, it isn't owned by the province. It's owned by the county, and therefore we weren't trespassing on Dalton McGuinty's property. Even though the roads belong to the county, Dalton McGuinty seems to think that he owns those as well. But they were turned over to the county by the developer, and the county is responsible for those roads, although they say they hadn't accepted responsibility for them yet. Well, when the roads are turned over, I think it becomes the responsibility of the county.
Well, I
may be... Go ahead.
Okay. My understanding as well was that the people who are allowed to be on that property would include people who are protesters in land ownership. It doesn't say specifically native protesters, so you could have been, I guess, considered to be carrying on a protest, couldn't you?
Well, that's exactly right. We had a meeting 2 hours before the protest with a couple of OPP officers, and they presented a document from the Ontario Realty Corporation, and in that document it specified that the only people allowed on the property were land claim protesters, agents of the Crown, or contractors. With that, I responded, well, I'm a land claim protester. Well, the OPP officers in attendance were somewhat puzzled by that. And although I didn't get an answer, I did indicate, was this because of the color of my skin? And there was no response to that because they're not wanting to deal with race in any way, shape, or form. However, I think the land claim protester should be just that. So the OPP officer said, well, you know, there is a number there that you could call to get this clarified. Well, it's Saturday at 12 noon, and I'm sure there's nobody in a government office at 12 noon on a Saturday. So, of course, we wanted a copy of that document for our records, and he'd only come with one copy, and that was his to keep. So, of course, we had to read everything that was on that document into a recorder. So we do have the recording of that document, which I certainly couldn't rhyme off to you now. But it's not specific in who the land claim protesters can be. However, we were on county-owned property, not on Dalton's property. So I think they're beating a dead horse here, but we'll have to see, I guess, when we come back in February.
Well, it's good work that you're doing, and I'm sure it's not easy for all of you and for anyone involved here from the government or the police to tell you that they don't want to make this an issue of skin color or race. That's entirely what it is. It isn't anything else.
It's nothing but skin color, race, like the police have engaged in race-based policing. The justice system is engaged in justice race in the justice system, and it's beyond the pale. Like, this has gone on for nearly 6 years now. I've been in this struggle since the outset. I'm surrounded by many, many cowards within the county and within my town of Caledonia. They're fearful. Like, I look at the armed robbery at the Kentucky Fried Chicken place, and I asked one of the help there how the woman was making out that had the gun pulled on her, and she responded by telling me that the woman no longer works there. She got out of there and couldn't stand that. Now, we have people within the town that can do something about that by putting pressure on the OPP and the McGuinty government. but they choose to ignore it and hope that it goes away. Well, it hasn't gone away in 6 years. I'm disappointed with the council. The previous council, the current council, stands around telling me that writing letters is certainly more effective than what we do. But the only way that we can keep this out in the public, of course, is get the media attention. So we do what we got to do to get the police to arrest us falsely, and then we take it from there.
All right. Well, in 2006, Native protesters took over the development, but they took it further than that. They were forcing citizens in the area to use Native-produced passports to come and go and get into their own homes. And my guest is one of the people who's been so grievously handled in this whole thing, grievously handled by the government and the police, who were supposed to uphold law and order just based on the law, not on skin color. That's not how it has happened. So you're on trial now for the protest of being out there on that county road. What kind of penalty are you up against should they find you guilty?
Well, I would expect it would just be a fine, but you know, anybody that objects to what the McGuinty government or the OPP are doing, they come up with all kinds of things that they try to do. And when it gets in the court, they stumble and fumble, and we usually walk away. As in Gary McHale's, 4 arrests, not 1 conviction, 31 months of travel restrictions, and then only to say we're staying the charges. Like, this is total insanity, aided and abetted by the people that will stand, that won't stand for what's right. I'm not going away. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. So I'm not going away. I'm an ill man right now, and some people would say, oh, that's too bad, but there are others that wouldn't agree, that they'd be just as happy if I weren't there. But like I say, I'm not going until the good Lord calls me home.
Well, it's good work that you're doing. You're on the right side of this, and I think you need more support from people all across Canada. And so if people could speak to their MPs on this, it would be a good thing. Thank you, sir.
Thanks ever so much, Jerry.